In 1932, a strange and unexpected conflict unfolded in the vast landscapes of Western Australia. This was not a war between nations, but a battle between man and bird. A conflict that would go down in history as the Great Emu War. It pitted the might of the Australian military, armed with modern weaponry, against a population of 20,000 large flightless birds. The soldiers, confident in their superiority, marched into the fray expecting a swift and decisive victory. They were about to be proven spectacularly wrong. The story begins in the aftermath of World War I. Many Australian veterans had been settled as farmers in the Campion district of Western Australia, encouraged to cultivate wheat on often marginal land. These new farmers faced numerous hardships, but the Great Depression brought a new level of desperation as wheat prices plummeted, and the government's promises of subsidies failed to materialize. As if economic ruin wasn't enough, a new enemy appeared on the horizon. Some 20,000 emus, migrating after their breeding season, descended upon the farmlands. These birds, native to Australia, discovered that the cultivated lands were a paradise, offering an abundant supply of food and water. They began to feast on the wheat crops, tearing through fields and trampling whatever they didn't eat. The fences built to keep out smaller pests like rabbits proved to be no match for the powerful emus, which simply charged through them, leaving large gaps for other animals to follow. The farmers were at their wits' end. They watched as their livelihoods were devoured by an avian army. A delegation of these ex-soldiers, familiar with the tools of war, appealed to the Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce. They requested the deployment of machine guns to deal with the emu plague. Having served their country, they felt it was only right for the country to help them in their time of need. The Minister of Defense agreed, but with several conditions. The military would provide the machine guns and the personnel to operate them, but the farmers had to cover the costs of food, accommodation, and ammunition. Furthermore, a cinematographer from Fox Movietone was sent along to capture what was expected to be a glorious display of human ingenuity and military prowess. The stage was set for a conflict unlike any other. Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery was placed in command of the operation. He was joined by two soldiers, Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran, and equipped with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. On November 2, 1932, the war officially began. The soldiers headed to the Campion district, where a flock of about 50 emus had been spotted. The locals attempted to herd the birds into an ambush, but the emus were far too clever. They split into smaller groups and scattered, making them incredibly difficult targets. The initial barrage of machine gun fire was largely ineffective due to the birds' speed and erratic movements. A second attempt later that day yielded similar disappointing results. Major Meredith noted that the emus seemed to have an uncanny ability to organize themselves. He observed that each flock appeared to have a leader, a large black-plumed bird, that would keep watch while its comrades engaged in their destructive work. At the first sign of danger, this leader would give a signal, and the entire flock would scatter, running in all directions. The soldiers, accustomed to stationary targets and disciplined enemy formations, were utterly baffled by this guerrilla-style warfare. A few days later, on November 4th, the military planned a more substantial ambush near a local dam. Over 1,000 emus were seen heading towards the location, and the soldiers lay in wait, ready to unleash a torrent of firepower. This time, they waited until the birds were at point-blank range before opening fire. The Lewis guns roared to life, but after only a dozen birds had fallen, one of the guns jammed. The remaining emus, momentarily stunned, quickly recovered and fled before the second gun could inflict any significant damage. The soldiers were learning a hard lesson. Emus were not just big, dumb birds. They were fast, resilient, and surprisingly tactical. They could run at speeds of up to 30 miles per hour, and their thick feathers and tough hides offered surprising protection. Even when hit, many emus would simply absorb the bullets and keep running, disappearing over the horizon seemingly unfazed. The soldiers were firing thousands of rounds for a ridiculously low number of confirmed kills. Major Meredith's respect for his feathered adversaries grew with each passing day. He was quoted in a newspaper saying, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. The emus had effectively become feathered tanks, demonstrating a resilience that defied all expectations. The media, both local and international, began to pick up on the story, and the Great Emu War became a source of public amusement and ridicule. The image of trained soldiers with machine guns being outsmarted by a flock of birds was too comical to ignore. The campaign was becoming a public relations disaster for the military and the government. After nearly a week of frustrating and fruitless combat, the first phase of the operation was called off. The official report stated that 2,500 rounds of ammunition had been fired to kill, at most, a few hundred emus. It was an abysmal failure. One politician in the Australian House of Representatives mockingly asked if any medals would be awarded for this war. Another suggested that the emus should get the medals for their successful defense. Despite the initial withdrawal, the emu problem persisted. The birds continued their assault on the farms, and the farmers renewed their pleas for assistance. Just days after the operation was halted, the Minister of Defense was forced to relent and order the troops back into the field. The second attempt began on November 13th. The military, having learned from its previous failures, adopted new strategies. They found that ambushing smaller, more manageable groups was slightly more effective. However, the emus seemed to have learned as well. They were warier, more difficult to approach, and scattered even more quickly at the first hint of danger. The casualty rates for the emus improved slightly, but the cost in ammunition was still staggering. One of the most infamous encounters involved attempting to mount a Lewis gun on a moving truck. The plan was to chase the emus down and fire from the moving vehicle. This proved to be a complete farce. The ride was so bumpy that the gunner couldn't get a clear shot, and the emus easily outran the truck over the rough terrain. At one point, an emu became entangled in the truck's steering gear, causing the driver to swerve and crash through a fence. The bird escaped unharmed. By early December, it was clear that the war was unwinnable. Major Meredith was recalled, and the campaign was officially abandoned on December 10th. In his final report, he noted 986 confirmed kills using 9,860 rounds of ammunition. This meant it took, on average, 10 bullets to kill a single emu. He also claimed that a further 2,500 birds had died from injuries. But these numbers were never verified, and were likely an attempt to save face. The emus had won. The Australian military, which had fought bravely in the trenches of World War I, had been defeated by a population of birds. In the end, the government turned to a more conventional and ultimately more effective solution. Bounties were placed on emus, which encouraged farmers and professional hunters to take up the task. This decentralized approach, over several years, proved far more successful in controlling the emu population than the concentrated military effort ever was. The Great Emu War remains one of the most bizarre and humorous chapters in military history. It's a tale of human hubris, the surprising resilience of nature. And the day the Australian Army declared war on birds and lost, it serves as a powerful reminder that brute force and advanced technology are not always the answer, especially when you're up against an enemy that simply refuses to play by the rules. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this strange tale from history, be sure to subscribe to Infinite O'Neill for more fascinating stories.